Emiko knows who's in the room, and I'll start. I am Diana Batista, chair of this committee. I'm with Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, Stanford, and we're gonna do popcorn style, so I like to keep people on their toes. Scott.
Hi, I'm Scott Hunter. I'm the executive director of the Los Altos Village Association.
Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Wilson with R3 Consulting. We're the city's consultants for all things solid waste and recycling. Excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
We'll go with Gary.
Hello, I'm at home. I'm dealing with a little plumbing problem, and so I've got a plumber here, and that's why I'm going to have the video off and the mute on. But yeah, I'm with Greentown Los Altos, and I'm very interested in what Emiko has to say. I've been trying to work, I actually have been working to get the History Museum certified as a green business, and so this will be relevant to them. Thank you very much.
Michael took his mute off, so Michael.
I'm also working from home here, and I'm monitoring the laundry, the joys of the self-employed. I'm Michael Murphy. I'm a rolfer. My office is in the Clock Tower building in Loyola Corner.
Dennis.
We come back to Dennis.
Well, Kim, do you know Dennis?
I do. Oh, so Dennis Young, owner of Young Craig and Company, and also part owner of the Los Altos Town Crier, and member of the Chamber Board of Directors as well.
And Kim said it all.
Good morning, Dennis.
We knew you wouldn't be quiet for long.
Well, that's funny.
This is also a good test for Kim. Do you know your member is Kim? Abby.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Kim Mosley, president of the Los Altos Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for joining us this morning.
And Abby?
Owner of Ancheta Hotel, local real estate broker for more years than half a century.
Oscar.
Hi, everyone. Oscar Garcia, helping out the chamber with membership, and also today with Zoom. All right.
And I know you're Rosemary, but I don't know.
You can call me Rose, R3 Consulting, same as Claire. Here to help support the city and expert on these matters.
Awesome. And I think that's it. So we're going to open up today's call, and we thank Emiko for joining us today. He's going to talk to us about SB Senate Bill 1383, going to be effective starting January 1 of next year. And I'm just going to start off the meeting with happy birthday to my mama, even though she's not on the call today. So she's off in New York enjoying her birthday week. So with that, Emiko, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you. Well, happy birthday to Mama Batista. So thank you so much for having me. As she said, I'm Emiko Ancheta with the City of Los Altos Sustainability Coordinator. So today we are going to be talking about SB 1383, and I am joined by Claire and Rose from R3 Consulting, and so they are here. And so obviously if I get off track or say something, misspeak or something, just chime in and correct me. So no worries about interrupting me there. So let me share my screen here. Just let me know when you can see that. Did that come up good? Yeah, okay. Let me just.
That's great. Just put it into.
Did that work? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so today, as I mentioned, we're talking about SB 1383, and or it's commonly referred to as the organics bill. And so we're going to cover a little bit of the background and the overview, a little bit of an overview of SB 1383 requirements, jurisdiction responsibilities, compliance, how to get into compliance for residents and businesses, the edible food recovery program requirements, and the municipal updates. And then we will leave some time for questions at the end. So, okay, so in September of 2016, Governor Jerry Brown at that time signed into law SB 1383. And so this bill establishes methane emission reduction targets statewide. That's in an effort to reduce the emissions of the short-lived climate pollutants. And then in November of 2020, the California Department of Resources, Recycling and Recovery, otherwise known as CalRecycle, finalized their SB 1383 regulations. And so this is the most significant waste reduction mandate to be adopted in California in the last 30 years. And this requires the state to reduce organic waste disposal by 75% by 2025. So in other words, the state needs to reduce organic waste disposal by more than 20 million tons annually by 2025. And then this also requires the state to increase edible food recovery by 20%, and that's by 2025 as well. And these are statewide targets, so it's not a jurisdiction target. So local jurisdictions are going to need to comply with this by January 1st of 2022. And so what is included in these organics? So that will include the green waste, the food waste, the paper waste. And that's for green waste, like yard clippings and the vegetative matter. For food waste, it can be those leftover food scraps. And then the paper products would be the food soil paper, like the coffee filters, pizza boxes, and those things. Okay. You guys are seeing my slides change, right? Yes, okay, cool. So when we're talking about organic waste for the purpose of SB 1383, we're talking about green waste, wood waste, food waste, but also fibers, like I mentioned, paper and cardboard. So organic waste comprises 2/3 of our waste stream. And so food waste alone is the largest waste stream in California. According to CalRecycle's last waste characterization study, which was done in 2014, food waste comprises 18% of what we disposed. And you can see on the pie chart, the breakdown. So SB 1383 also requires California to recover the 20% of currently disposed edible food. And so CalRecycle is conducting a new waste characterization study, and that will take a closer look at our food waste stream. And the results of that study will help determine how much edible food waste is landfilled on average throughout the state. But what we do know is that 1 in 5 children and 1 in 8 Californians go hungry every night in California. And so redirecting perfectly edible food that is currently being disposed to feed those in need can help alleviate this. And so for every 2.5 tons of food that's rescued, that's the equivalent of taking 1 car off the road for a year. And so this slide, shows the effects, how it's related to climate change. And so, how does this affect the climate? So when we're landfilling organic waste, that leads to anaerobic breakdown of that material, which creates methane and other air quality pollutants. And so, landfills are responsible for 21% of the state's methane emissions. And landfills are the 3rd largest producer of methane. Methane is 72 times more potent than carbon dioxide over a 20-year horizon. And so climate change, may seem like a distant problem, but there are other more localized environmental impacts associated with landfill disposal of the organic waste that have immediate negative impacts on our community, can have health impacts, and as I mentioned, the air quality. And so that leads to that. And so diverting organic waste to recycling can significantly reduce the local air quality emissions and the associated negative impacts. And so,
Excuse me, Emiko, you said it was the third largest. What are number 1 and 2, please?
I believe transportation and, I don't know the second one. I'm sorry, not off the top of my head.
I believe it's transportation and oil and gas production.
Thank you.
And so, as I mentioned, diverting the organic waste to recycling can significantly reduce local and air quality, emissions and the associated negative impacts. And so we're starting to see the effects of climate change in cities and counties all through California, actually all over the world. And so we see this with the longer droughts, which creates warmer temperatures, also creates warmer temperatures, drying the forest, and then that contributes to wildfires. So, we are seeing more frequent droughts, bigger storms, coastal erosion, which is due to the rising sea levels. And so states and communities are spending, billions to fight these wildfires and rebuilding homes. And so that means that we pay for the effects of this. And the financial and public health impacts are here. And so, we do need to take action. We need to address this. And that is why the state enacted SB1383, which is designed to reduce the global warming gases like methane, which are the most potent. And at least 25% of today's warming is driven by methane from human action. And so reducing these gases now through actions like organic waste recycling will have significantly reduce emissions, and then will reduce the impacts of climate change in our lifetime. Next here. So since, about 1980s, there have been various assembly bills geared towards waste management. In 2014, you can see AB 1826, which is the mandatory commercial organics recycling bill, that required that as of January 1st, 2021, so this year, businesses generating 2 cubic yards or more of commercial solid waste per week must arrange for organic recycling services with one of the city's or with the city's commercial hauler. And then additionally, multifamily properties with 5 or more units must arrange for organic recycling service. And then the next one, which is AB 827, required that as of July 1st, 2020, that all businesses are required to provide organics and recycling bins at the front of house to collect recycling and food scraps. And so then we get to SB 1383. And so that will begin January 1st, 2022, and will require all businesses to subscribe to organic recycling. Additionally, certain businesses must recover edible food, as we talked about, and then I'll go a little bit more into detail on that on an upcoming slide. And so in 2024 is when jurisdictions will be required to take enforcement against the non-compliant entities. So SB 1383 goes into effect January 1st, 2022. Enforcement begins January 1st, 2024. And so SB 1383 is an unfunded state mandate, meaning that the regulation requires a state or local government to perform certain actions with no money provided to fulfill those requirements. And so local governments are going to be required to do these various things. So provide the organic waste collection, and that's to all residents and business and most businesses. Conduct outreach and education to the generators. Establish an edible food recovery program. There's also inspection and enforcement of generators for compliance, and conducting facility capacity planning for the processing of organics. And so to meet this deadline, Cal Recycle expects that jurisdictions will be planning and making the necessary requirements regarding this in advance of the deadline. So the timeline means that we need to plan and prep and start now. And that's what we are doing. And so this chart here shows how to get into compliance. So if you already have an organic service, then you're in compliance. The next two, the backhaul and the self-haul, which are not as common, if that is what you do, then you would need to complete the self-haul form. And so there's a self-haul form, and you submit that to the city. Specifically for the self-haul of organics, in addition to the form, you will need to maintain records of your weight tickets, the facility it was taken to, and the tons of the material. For the fourth one, if you do not have space for organics, or you don't generate the organics, then you can complete a waiver form. So you would complete that form, you would submit that to the city, and then the city staff or Mission Trail Waste Systems would then visit the business. They would have to verify that. And then if it's verified and approved, then you're exempt for a 5-year period. And then for the last one, if you do not have organic service, then you would contact Mission Trail to get that service started. They will deliver your cart or bin, and then you're then in compliance. Okay, and so now moving on to the edible food recovery portion. So this is broken down into 2 tiers. So there's a tier 1 and a tier 2. So tier 1 being that you're one of the following. So it's either a supermarket, a grocery store, with a specific size, food service provider, a food distributor, wholesale food vendor. And then tier 2 would be a restaurant with 250 or more seats, or the total facility size that's equal or greater to 5,000 square feet. A hotel with on-site food facility and 200 or more rooms. And then a health facility with on-site food facility and 100 or more beds. And then like the large venues or large events. It also includes the state agencies with cafeterias, and then the local education agency facilities that have the on-site food facilities. So for tier 1, they need to be in compliance by January 1st of 2022. For tier 2, they need to be in compliance by January 1st, 2024. And in order so those that are covered under these tiers would be required to, 1, recover the maximum food amount of edible, or maximum amount of edible food that would otherwise be disposed. Have a contract or written agreement with a food recovery organization. Maintain records of the food recovery organization that you're donating to, copies of the food recovery organization contract, and then the type of food collected, transported, frequency and quantity. And so we are currently working with Silicon Valley joint venture. And so this is all being arranged under a county effort. So the county has partnered with them. And so we currently have the San Jose Conservation Corp fellows assisting with this particular component of the bill. And so They are currently right now, we're working on outreach to those tier 1s so that we can make sure some of them may have already been in compliance because they were already doing the recovery, and they already had agreements with food recovery organizations. And so we don't have too many in Los Altos that fall under tier 1, but for the ones that do, we have just started to contact them. And so Los Altos is currently making the necessary updates to our code to make sure that we're in compliance. And so the city has an ordinance that has been in place since 2015 to provide the organic service. And so we will be updating the municipal code to align with the requirements in SB1383. You know, that will include the waivers that we talked about for the lack of space, the self-haul regulations, the edible food recovery requirements, and the penalties for non-compliance, which again, don't begin until January 1st of 2024. And so for businesses without recycling and organics, they should have received a letter from the city that went out just recently. And so that details the upcoming change and the service requirements. There's also the waiver form that was included in there if they qualify for that, and instructions on how they can turn that in. So if you believe you're exempt or do not generate organics, or you're lacking the space, you would fill that waiver form out that was included with the letter, and that can be submitted to the city in 2 ways. It can be either mailed, or it can be sent to the email address that's on there, which was recycle@losaltos.ca.gov. And actually I have contact information here, which I think I'll leave up. So the first email address there is where those waiver forms would be sent to, or excuse me, the address down at the bottom of that first bullet is where it could be mailed to. And we've already started receiving some, so it looks like people are getting their letters. I have my contact information also on there. And then we have some resource links. And so to set up your service, obviously you would contact Mission Trail Waste Systems, and they would deliver your bin or your cart. Also Cal Recycle, on their homepage, there's a link directly to SB1383. And then once you click on that, it's broken down by components. So it's organized very easy and user-friendly. They even have a frequently asked questions page that can answer at least most questions for each section, that component of this particular bill. And so that is the end for me. And so I will open it up to questions. And I think
Thank you so much, Emiko. That was honestly super, really informative. I can't see folks on my screen. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you want me to stop sharing? I was going to look it up.
That would be great. Thank you.
And I actually, something that I'd like to add just at the end here is that there is a planned rollout for organic service, which is in compliance with SB 1383 and the city's existing mandatory ordinance starting on September 1st. So people who have not submitted an exemption form and don't have service now will be receiving a cart at that time. We want to make sure that people are aware of that, and if they feel they're exempt, to get in touch. And if not, you know, and you have questions about how to comply and what that looks like in, you know, a restaurant or other business that produces food scraps, we're definitely available for that and would really like to help.
Thank you. So two quick questions that came to my mind, just for clarification, really. So what in tier 1, what's the difference between a supermarket and a grocery store? Because I saw the grocery store with a total facility size of greater than 10,000 square feet, but what's the difference between that and a supermarket?
I think it's the size, if I'm not mistaken, Rosemary, maybe the supermarkets. So those are, Safeways and Whole Foods and the larger stores. The grocery stores, I think they specifically called those out because they have to be a specific size. So you could be a grocery store, like not a chain grocery store, but a smaller size. And
Okay.
so under that threshold, I believe.
Okay.
Yes, you're right, Emiko. It's really just the way the state's defining the categories. And it should be noted as well that you'll likely receive, if you are a covered edible food generator, a letter or some sort of communication that you are in fact covered, and making sure that you have the ability to donate edible food and what that edible food might look like in resources. So
that's interesting, because where I live, there's like a lot of small mom and pops, Latino owned businesses, and I'm like trying to think of their square footage and are they going to be able to comply with that? So that's like what came to my mind. And then the other question was, so in 2024, as you know, Los Altos Chamber, we do a golf tournament every year. So if we were doing this in 2024, anything left over food-wise, the venue would have to take care of, right? Am I understanding that? Or
if you have more than 2,000 people in attendance, that would be a covered venue. And yes, actually the caterers are also tier 1. So if you have it catered, they're already likely to be covered. And again, the law is not supposed to, if food's sitting out all day and it's no longer safe for consumption, that's not considered edible food. So the intention is for it to be, if it's still edible, that it would be recovered.
okay,
But
thank you.
But also those large events would be required to have the organics recycling component, which is related, but a little bit different. So you want to have the green carts out and available for use by the participants and also the caterer and people on the back end too.
Okay, thank you.
If I could clarify on that, then Rose, there'll be an additional bin. I saw somewhere it said front of house bins, right? So if, for instance, like, Lulu's, you have your recycle bins that are there ordinarily, there'll be an additional bin there now for food recovery. Is that how this takes place in?
Yeah, Lulu's is a great example. So yes, and any leftover food, and also the containers that are not metal or plastic would all go into that compost bin, which means that it would everything that's served there would essentially go into the compost bin in the front of house.
This is Gary. I have a question.
Go for it, Gary.
Okay. At the History Museum, we do generate a little bit of organic. There's coffee grounds and maybe some sandwich making scraps from time to time, but it's very minimal. And so we could get a waiver if we had no organics, but can you get a waiver for some sort of very small quantity of organics?
Yeah, if you produce 10 gallons or less per week of organics, then you're eligible for that exemption waiver. And that's pretty easy. You think 10 gallons, what is that? If you just think of those large pails that Home Depot might sell, 5-gallon pails, it's just 2 of those. So if it's coffee grounds, it's unlikely to quite get there.
Yeah, we're not going to get there in a week. Okay, but then I do have to apply for a waiver.
But you're always welcome to get organic service for that minimal amount of material. We do want to encourage that. But certainly if it doesn't logistically make sense, you are eligible for the waiver.
Well, we do have some space constraints too. So we probably would do that. Thank you.
But to follow up on that, the History Museum isn't a food service provider. So as as just a general business, are they required to obtain a waiver?
Yes, yes. So all businesses and in fact residents are covered by the law and required to sort their organic materials. It's more likely for food service providers or locations with a kitchen to generate enough organics that they're not eligible for the waiver, but all businesses have to evaluate whether they need service or want a waiver.
Do you guys by chance know the organic service, if a company or organization wanted to subscribe to that? Is there a price difference on size? Like if I owned a Hyatt hotel versus like a grocery store, is there a cost difference, like that they need to like start writing into their budget, or is it all like one size fits all?
It's a great question. So a huge benefit of the contract with Mission Trail Waste Systems is that organic service is free. So in fact, if a business does not have organic service now, but produces a lot of organics, participating in the program could actually mean you reduce the size of your garbage because you're actually using the free service instead and actually save money.
Oh, all right.
So I have a question. Gary, you do a lot of catering at the History Museum, all of your weddings, etc. How can you be exempt when you have food service in a kitchen?
The caterers take their scraps away, all their waste away.
I guess it's a question I would ask Emiko or others, whether or not everything that they are doing, is completely removed. Not to pick on the History Museum. I'm a huge fan of the museum, and
that's a good question.
I think it's a really tough question. I had another one. Since COVID, we don't have the buffet type things available in restaurants and others where there is excess food. It's like nothing's being prepackaged. How are you accepting food that isn't packaged?
I can take that. And before I respond to that question, Abby, which is a great question, I did just want to clarify that there's the requirements for SB1383 to have your compost bin service. And then there's also requirements for edible food recovery, which is not everyone. So that's just the tier 1s and tier 2s that Emiko was, the presentation had. So everyone's required for the organic waste, but only some are required to actually donate the edible food, recover the edible food. But in terms of a hotel, and again, you would have to meet the threshold of the number of rooms that you would, if you do meet that threshold and you do have edible food, you would have to talk with a food recovery organization, whether that is a faith-based group or a food bank, to see what they take. And that's where it gets a little bit defining what edible food is. I mean, some example I might think of is like if you have leftover cream cheese or something from bagels, is that really edible food? I mean, do they want that? That might not be, the letter of the law really says donate the amount of edible food to the maximum possible. But if that's not really being accepted, that's something that you'd have to work out with the food recovery organization of what what they're accepting.
That really makes
sense. And it would
sense.
also,
because let's say that you were doing tubs of macaroni and cheese, obviously not at a small French hotel, but that's opened, it's been exposed, and COVID has created such strict requirements on food service. So before, for example, we were doing hot breakfast for our guests, but we can't, in a way, do it the way we did it before, where they came down and served many of the things themselves. So it's almost like everything's being cooked to order. And I realize that I'm exempt, but that doesn't mean my heart is exempt. So you know,
Yeah.
wanting to make a difference sometimes is really tough, because I think that's a set of rules that really needs to be unpacked a bit.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really cool opportunities for that more prepared food, where the tier 1 generators that are going to have to start donating edible food January 1, 2022. They're mostly donating canned foods, bulk goods, things like that that a traditional food bank can handle. But the tier 2 generators are going to be donating, like in the macaroni example, if it's within that 2-hour window that's food safe. Their food banks are already trying to use technology to use food runners or other people, volunteers that are able to deliver that food, get it into the hands of hungry folks. So there's a lot of really interesting things that can happen with the prepared food, but it's it's complicated.
So I haven't had breakfast yet, and the idea of mac and cheese that's been sitting out is kind of grossing me out. So we're going to go to Michael for his question.
I think in French you say macaroni. I think that's how it's pronounced in French. I'm a small business. I don't generate food waste. I rent from a landlord. The landlord has a green bin on site already. Should I file a waiver? Am I covered by his business? How does all that work?
The way that the letters went out is based on who has an account with the solid waste hauler. So if you're a part of a group of businesses that all share the same solid waste account, the account holder would have received the letter. If he already has organic service, then you're set.
I've got another question. Maybe the History Museum will participate. Okay, thank you, Abby. What does this organic waste container look like, and how big is it?
I believe that Mission Trail has several sizes. The smallest would be a 20-gallon container, which is quite small. So it's like a short, narrow, but the same sort of look as a garbage container or what you have at your house for yard waste and food scraps.
So it's tight enough to keep the animals, the varmints from getting into it.
Well, it will still be weekly service, which is the same as garbage. So if you have existing pest issues that affect your garbage, that wouldn't change with organic service. It's the same type of container. But that said, the material is being thrown away into those containers anyway. So it's not like it's going to look substantially different with organics.
It's just concentrated because we have a lot of yard clippings that kind of commingle it otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, come on, Gary. Even the raccoons need edibles.
Yeah, raccoons I don't mind, but the rats, I draw the line.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
This is a bit of a side note, but are there food service recovery organizations? Are there enough of them in place to really manage the load that we're talking about here?
So far, yes. But I think that's something, obviously, when we talk about capacity planning, both for the organics, but then also for the food recovery itself, that is a part of this as well, that jurisdictions are going to be a part of trying to figure out. So there's quite a lot here that I think we are planning for and trying to prep for. But for us right now, and the way it is, we haven't had any issues. Like I said, we just started reaching out to those tier 1s. And so, and that just happened, within the last few weeks. So if there's anything that comes up, then that's something that we have to plan for. That part is mostly done, is being facilitated through the county at the county level. So another thing to mention is that if you go to the county website, I should put that website up there too, is they have a specific link in there for the edible food recovery portion of it as well. And it has all that information about how to be in compliance, how to get that contract set up and everything. And so we haven't heard anything that they're running into issues, but I'm assuming that that's going to take time to develop.
And you said that Silicon Valley Joint Ventures?
Uh-huh. So yeah, Silicon Valley Joint Venture.
Any other questions? Emiko, Rosemary, Claire, thank you so much for this. This was super informative. I know this was recorded, so the public will definitely be able to get this information. So, and you put your contact information in the slideshow, which is also being recorded, so that people can contact you directly. So thank you again. Thank you so much for this. I guess if we have any more questions, we'll reach out to you, but thank you again.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for allowing us to come and talk about this. I know it's a lot of information, but it's good stuff. So we're looking forward to the success of it.
Kim, I
To
can't
get
hear
this
you.
information out to our businesses. And so we'll send this through our newsletter, have it posted on our website, and make sure that we're, informing our business community of the upcoming requirements. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's good to see everyone. Thank you.
Kim, any announcements?
So we are busy preparing for our golf tournament, which is August 30th. It's our annual fundraiser. We were not able to hold the golf tournament last year, obviously due to COVID. And so it's especially helpful if you're interested in supporting the chamber, and if you either like to golf or you're available to come to the evening event at the course. We have a dinner and social hour there. So you can go to our website to take a look at the golf tournament and support that effort. So we look forward to a really fun day out on the course. It's at Los Altos Country Club, and it's always a fun day.
Great. And our next meeting will be September 1, and same time, same place. And I think anybody have any announcements for the good of the order? Want to make sure members get a chance. All right, you all have like 14 minutes back in your day. So thank you so much. See you all next month. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you all.